Welcome back to Mission of the Chosen. Tonight we are entering a place few dare to step, uncovering truths hidden beneath silence, struggle, and unanswered prayers that shape the unseen battles of your destiny. Have you ever wondered why, in the moments you prayed the hardest, silence was the only response? You whispered through tears, you cried in the stillness of the night, and yet nothing seemed to shift. It's not just you. That silence you've been wrestling with is heavier than mere absence, it's resistance. It feels like pressing your hand against glass. You can see the possibility of breakthrough on the other side, but the barrier remains invisible and unyielding. That frustration, that hollowness, doesn't mean God abandoned you. It's evidence of interference. Forces that fear your awakening know what will happen the moment you realize who you really are. Think of your life as a stage. For years, you thought you were the only one performing your part. But what if there have been unseen actors, pulling ropes, adjusting lights, dropping curtains? What if your delays, your denials, your deepest heartbreaks have been orchestrated not by chance, but by hands determined to keep you small, quiet, and contained? The most painful truth is this: sometimes, those hands belong to voices you trusted, leaders you followed, mentors you respected. They spoke in the language of faith, but built empires from your brokenness. They told you to be patient when they meant be silent. They called your questions rebellion when they were actually signs of awakening. Let's talk about the silence of God. What if His silence isn't absence, but strategy? Think about it. If every prayer was answered immediately, you'd never discover how strong your faith really island. You'd never sense the war raging over your destiny. The silence has been shaping you, sharpening you, preparing you for battles you didn't even know were coming. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your very survival is proof that heaven has been holding you. Every tear collected, every sigh recorded, every lonely night counted. You thought no one noticed, but eternity has been watching. Why does breakthrough feel like smoke in your hands? Because every time you're about to step into something greater, resistance increases. This is not coincidence. This is spiritual warfare. The closer you get to your calling, the harder the enemy fights to keep you from it. And here's where it cuts deeper. The enemy rarely comes as a monster in the night. He disguises himself as wisdom. He hides in tradition. He speaks through familiar voices, softly suggesting you lower your expectations, abandon your vision, settle for less. These whispers are chains disguised as comfort. Look around and you'll see it everywhere. Leaders living lavishly while their congregations scrape for survival. Promises of prosperity that never arrive. Words polished with scripture, yet hollow in spirit. And all the while, you wonder if your suffering is your fault. If your unanswered prayers mean you don't have enough faith. But these are lies, carefully crafted to keep you bound. Tonight, I need you to grasp this. None of it has been random. Your pain is not meaningless. Your struggle is not wasted. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every season of silence has been allowed because you carry a purpose so dangerous, hell had to move against you. And yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still searching for truth. That alone is proof of your resilience, proof that the story isn't over. If the forces working against you truly had power to destroy you, they would have done it already. The fact that you're here means you're still in the fight, and victory is closer than you think. Some of you are sensing this in your bones. It's why you feel different, even isolated. It's why you can't quite fit into the mold others seem comfortable in. It's not that you're broken, it's that you were never meant to blend in. You were set apart for something greater, and that difference is the very reason darkness fears you. But here's the most liberating truth. The struggle you've faced isn't a sign of God's absence. It's a sign of your importance. The enemy doesn't waste resources on those who pose no threat. The fact that you've been attacked, delayed, discouraged, and silenced is proof of the fire you carry inside. So what do you do with this truth? You stop seeing your unanswered prayers as evidence of failure. You start seeing them as proof of warfare, and you understand that the silence wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Now listen carefully. This moment isn't about information, it's about transformation. You're hearing this because heaven knew you were ready, not ready for comfort, but ready for clarity. Ready to see the strings behind the curtain, ready to recognize that what you thought was random pain is targeted resistance. This isn't just about faith anymore. This is about identity, about realizing you are more dangerous to darkness than you ever imagined. And the moment you see that, the game changes. Tonight, as this truth lands in your spirit, don't just hear it, claim it. Whisper to yourself, I will not be deceived, I will not surrender, I see through the lies. Because the moment you speak it, the veil begins to tear. And once it tears, there is no going back. The storms you've endured weren't punishments, they were confirmations. The silence you feared wasn't abandonment, it was strategy. And the very fact you're still here means the war has already shifted in your favor. You've probably asked yourself why your life feels like a constant cycle of almost reaching the finish line only to have it yanked away. Every time you start to see light, darkness thickens. Every time you begin to taste hope, it's stolen before you can savor it. The pattern isn't your imagination, it's design. Think back to the opportunities that slipped through your hands. They didn't vanish because you lacked ability or faith. They disappeared because something unseen recognized what would happen if you ever stepped into your true place. Forces that operate in shadows know the weight of your destiny. That's why they've kept the game rigged against you from the beginning. They've studied you, learned your fears, taken note of the words that wound you the deepest. Every failure, every heartbreak, every betrayal wasn't random, it was leveraged to shape your perspective until you started doubting yourself more than anything else. If they can keep you doubting, they can keep you defeated without lifting a sword. And here's where it becomes even more unsettling. The attacks don't always come from obvious enemies. More often, they come from the people you believed were safe. A friend who dismisses your dream as unrealistic. A leader who twists scripture until submission feels like suffocation. A voice of comfort that slowly conditions you to accept chains as normal. It's strategy. Not just to wound your heart, but to weaken your vision. Because if you lose sight of who you are, they don't need to destroy you, you'll dismantle yourself. But despite it all, you've noticed something within you refuses to die. That tiny spark that still believes in a greater purpose, even when every circumstance screams otherwise. That spark is evidence. Proof that light is not extinguished. Proof that, no matter how deep the silence or how heavy the weight, heaven has not abandoned you. The truth is, you were never ordinary, and ordinary weapons will never explain what you've endured. Ordinary lives don't attract extraordinary resistance. The level of warfare you've faced is the clearest indicator of how dangerous your existence is to the darkness. Look closely and you'll see the pattern. Just before your breakthrough, chaos intensifies. Just before a door opens, confusion multiplies. Just before the answer comes, silence grows heavier. That's not coincidence, that's warfare. But here's the revelation you need to anchor yourself to. The very resistance meant to break you has been shaping you. Every tear you thought was wasted has been watering the soil of your future. Every setback that crushed you has been forging strength you didn't know you possessed. Every delay has been preparation. You're not behind schedule. You're not forgotten. You're being positioned. And the day will come when all the pieces make sense. When you'll realize the suffering was not punishment but refinement. You'll see that the storms that tried to bury you became the winds that lifted you higher. So here is my question to you tonight. How much longer will you believe the lies that have chained you? How much longer will you carry guilt that was never yours? How much longer will you allow silence to convince you that heaven has turned its back? The veil is thinning. You can already feel it. And once it tears completely, nothing in your life will ever look the same again. The night is darkest just before the dawn. Hold on, because dawn is closer than you think. There's a reason deception feels so comfortable. It never arrives screaming its name. It slips in quietly, dressed as wisdom, cloaked in religion, wrapped in the voices you trust most. That's why it works. That's why you've been trapped in cycles that don't break. When someone tells you your suffering is God's plan, it feels holy enough to believe. When a leader says your poverty is humility, it sounds spiritual enough to accept. When you're told to wait endlessly without clarity, it feels like patience, but in truth, it becomes paralysis. These are chains, polished to look like faith. Think about it. If darkness came as obvious evil, you'd reject it instantly. But when it comes through sermons, traditions, or well-meaning friends, it seeps in quietly until you can't tell where the lie ends and the truth begins. That's how entire lives are wasted living inside cages built from words that sounded godly but were never divine. This is why your spirit has felt restless. It's why you can't stay content with easy answers. Something inside you knows that what you've been handed doesn't match what was promised. You've felt the tension between what you were told to accept and what your soul still cries out for. That cry is proof you haven't been silenced completely. And yet, here's the danger. The longer you sit in that fog, the easier it is to believe you're the problem. You start thinking your doubts are rebellion. You convince yourself your questions mean you lack faith. But the truth is the opposite. Your discomfort is your spirit's alarm, warning you that you were created for more than recycled lies. The wolves don't look like wolves anymore. They stand at pulpits in $1,000 suits. They fill arenas with lights and sound, selling hope like merchandise, promising breakthroughs that never come. And while you struggle to pay rent, they build empires on offerings made from your desperation. And still, they call it God. Here's the truth they'll never tell you. Your struggle was never God's will. Your defeat was never His design. Your silence was never His desire. The chains placed on your life didn't come from heaven, they came from voices that profit from your pain. Look at the pattern again. Every time you were close to awakening, the distractions multiplied. Every time your faith began to sharpen, a new storm came. Every time you grew stronger, someone you trusted cut you down. These aren't coincidences. They are strategies designed to keep you confused long enough to stop seeking. But what they didn't anticipate is this moment, you hearing these words, you sensing something shift inside, you beginning to recognize that your struggle carries a different weight. You weren't meant to be a follower lost in the crowd. You were meant to see through the illusions, to recognize the game for what it island. And once you see, you cannot unsee. So don't dismiss that fire burning inside you right now. It's your spirit confirming the truth. It's heaven reminding you that you were not born to remain caged. You were born to expose the lies that have chained not just you, but countless others who have suffered in silence. This is why the battle has been relentless. Because once you step into clarity, you'll never be fooled again. And when you walk free, you won't walk alone. You'll carry light for others still trapped in darkness. That is what the enemy fears most, not just your freedom, but the freedom your awakening will spark in others. So let me ask you, if the cost of truth is losing the comfort of illusion, are you willing to pay it? Because freedom doesn't come without loss. You will lose chains, yes, but you may also lose voices you trusted, paths you once followed, and systems you once believed in. But what you gain will outweigh every loss. The curtain is lifting, and the stage you thought was your whole story is only the beginning. What's behind it will shake you, but it will also set you free. And when the truth settles, you'll realize that the wolves never had the final word. The voices that silenced you will one day fall silent themselves, but the fire being lit in you tonight will not be extinguished. You've probably felt it in your bones. That strange weight pressing on you whenever you start to rise, whenever you begin to believe again. The pressure isn't coincidence, it's targeted. The closer you draw to clarity, the harder darkness leans against you. Every storm has a purpose, but the danger is this. Storms don't just try to break your body, they try to rewrite your mind. If the enemy can convince you that delay equals denial, he doesn't need to steal your blessing, you'll walk away from it yourself. Think about the seasons where you felt closest to surrender. The weariness didn't come from lack of strength. It came from invisible opposition working overtime to drain you. And yet, you endured. You survived battles you were never supposed to survive. That's not luck, that's evidence. What no one tells you is this. Survival itself is a testimony. Every breath you take, every step you've made forward, every time you chose to get out of bed when despair said stay down, it's proof you've already won more wars than you realize. And yet, you underestimate yourself. You dismiss the strength forged in silence, the wisdom carved out of heartbreak, the resilience that years of resistance created. If you saw yourself the way heaven sees you, you'd stop asking if you're chosen and start asking why you ever doubted. But let's be honest, the lies have been loud. They've been whispered through family, echoed by society, reinforced by religion. Lies that tell you you're too late, too flawed, too broken. Lies designed not just to discourage you, but to erase the vision you were born with. Still, here you are, listening, searching, refusing to stay asleep. That hunger inside you is the clearest evidence of your calling. If you were ordinary, you'd be content by now. If you weren't marked, you'd have settled long ago, but something in you won't rest until you see the truth. And here it is. The storms weren't random, the silence wasn't abandonment, and the pressure wasn't punishment. All of it has been pointing toward an awakening. A moment where you finally realize you are more than what you've been told. This is that moment. When the world told you to sit down, something in you stood up. When voices told you to give up, something in you pressed forward. When storms tried to bury you, something in you refused to die. That something isn't willpower, it's destiny. And destiny cannot be erased. So let me say this clearly. The battle you've been fighting is proof of the power you carry, and the very attacks meant to crush you have only revealed how unshakable you really are. The question is, will you step into that truth, or will you continue living as though the lies were real? The world may have tried to write your ending, but heaven is holding the pen, and the next chapter begins with you refusing to believe the lie one more day. There comes a point when silence turns into a mirror. You start to see yourself through unanswered prayers, through closed doors, through every moment heaven seemed distant. And if you're not careful, that reflection becomes distorted. You begin to believe you're unworthy, unloved, invisible. But the reflection isn't the truth, it's the war. Every delay, every unanswered cry, every season of waiting has been painting a picture in your mind. But it's not God holding the brush, it's opposition. The enemy knows that if he can shape how you see yourself, he doesn't need to fight your future. You'll sabotage it on your own. This is why so many of your battles have been inward. The war isn't just around you, it's inside you, in your thoughts, in your perception, in the voice that tells you you're not enough. But pause for a moment. Where did that voice come from? Was it yours, or was it planted? Think back. That voice that says you've missed your chance, didn't it sound a lot like the person who once told you you weren't capable? The voice that says you're too broken, didn't it echo the betrayal that left scars on your heart? These voices survive because they've been rehearsed inside you for years. But here's what they don't want you to realize. The moment you identify a lie, it loses its grip. The moment you say, "This isn't me," the chains begin to crack. And when the chains crack, light seeps through. You are not the sum of unanswered prayers. You are not the weight of disappointments. You are not defined by the silence. You are defined by the calling that refuses to leave you, the fire that never dies even when drowned in tears. Do you feel that spark inside you, even now? That flicker that refuses to go out, no matter how dark the night has been? That's not stubbornness. That's evidence of heaven's claim on you. That's why hell keeps fighting, because no amount of silence can extinguish what God planted. So the next time the voice whispers that you've been forgotten, answer it. Say, "If I were forgotten, I wouldn't still be here. If heaven had abandoned you, your spirit wouldn't still be burning. If your life was meaningless, the battle wouldn't be this fierce." You see, battles aren't proof of weakness, they're proof of worth. No one counterfeits trash, only treasure. And you've been counterfeited, resisted, and opposed because there's gold inside you darkness cannot afford to let shine. Every moment you've felt unseen has been shaping the warrior within you. Every unanswered prayer has been sharpening your discernment. Every night you thought was wasted was actually preparation. And when you finally see it, when you recognize none of it was random, you'll walk differently. You'll speak differently. You'll live differently. And here's the truth. The veil is thinning. You're already beginning to see through it. And once it falls completely, the chains that held you won't even make sense anymore. The silence that tried to define you will one day testify about you. That you survived what was meant to erase you, and you rose into the destiny no lie could bury. There's a moment in every battle when the enemy's true fear becomes obvious. It isn't when you're weak, when you're on your knees, or when you're questioning everything. It's when, despite all of that, you refuse to quit. That refusal is what terrifies the darkness. Think about your life. You've been hit with losses, betrayals, delays that made no sense. You've carried burdens most people will never understand, and yet, you're still here. That survival alone is victory. If the enemy had his way, you would have given up long ago, but you didn't, and that's why you're dangerous. Most people measure success by what they've gained, but in the spirit, survival is evidence of greatness. Every night you stayed alive when despair told you not to. Every morning you got out of bed when fear whispered, "Stay down." Every tear you cried but kept moving forward anyway. That's power darkness cannot stand against. And here's what few realize. Your pain has been forging gifts, clarity sharpened through confusion, wisdom born out of betrayal, strength shaped by every delay. The very things meant to destroy you have built the qualities you'll need for the destiny waiting ahead. You may not see it yet, but heaven does. Every silent prayer, every hidden wound, every battle no one else noticed, they've all been recorded, remembered, and transformed into preparation. Nothing has been wasted. So why has it felt so brutal? Because what's inside you is too valuable to come easy. Diamonds are formed under crushing pressure. Gold is purified through fire. And callings like yours are awakened only through resistance. You've been sensing this, haven't you? That what you carry is different. That your story doesn't fit the ordinary mold. That even your failures feel strange, as though they carry lessons larger than your mistakes. That's not delusion. That's recognition. Deep down, you've known you were marked for something beyond what your eyes can see. The forces that have studied you know it too. That's why they've been relentless. Because the moment you embrace who you are, the balance shifts. You stop being hunted and start becoming a hunter. You stop being a victim and start becoming a weapon. But here's the catch. Awakening comes with cost. You'll lose illusions. You'll lose the comfort of lies. You may even lose voices you once trusted. But what you'll gain, clarity, freedom, strength, will outweigh every loss. The question is simple. Are you willing to trade chains that feel familiar for freedom that feels uncertain? Because freedom will demand that you step into a new identity, one that doesn't settle, one that doesn't hide, one that refuses to be silenced anymore. And once you do, the same storms that nearly destroyed you will become testimonies of how unshakable you really are. The battles that tried to erase you will one day be the very stories proving that you were never breakable, only unprepared for the greatness you were always meant to carry. There's something you need to understand about why the fight has followed you everywhere. It's not just about what you've done, it's about what you were born to unleash. Darkness studies potential. It sees the ripple effect long before you ever step into it. That's why you've been resisted since the beginning. Look back on your story. Even in childhood, you felt different, sensitive in ways others didn't understand, awake to things most people ignored. You carried questions too heavy for your age, burdens that made no sense at the time. That wasn't weakness. It was the early sign that your spirit had been marked. Every setback, every betrayal, every delay has been part of a larger attempt to make you doubt that marking. If they can convince you you're ordinary, they don't need to fight what's inside you. They just keep you distracted long enough to bury it. But distraction is not destiny. And think about this. If the struggle was only about you, it wouldn't be this relentless. The truth is, your life is connected to others. There are people you've never met who will be freed because you rise. There are voices still in chains that will find their courage because you speak. The battle is fierce because the impact is bigger than you imagine. This is why the enemy works through familiar voices. A stranger's words wouldn't wound you, but the betrayal of someone you trusted, that's the kind of wound that lingers. That's the kind of pain that makes you question your very worth. And yet, even through those wounds, something inside you refuses to give up. That refusal is proof of the fire that cannot die. So, what happens when the fog clears? You'll realize your entire journey has been shaping someone who cannot be broken. You've been forged in storms, sharpened by silence, refined by pressure. And the very qualities you doubted about yourself, your sensitivity, your resilience, your refusal to accept lies, are the weapons that darkness fears most. When you finally see it, you'll stop asking why me and start declaring now I see, and in that moment, the chains lose their power. Because no prison can hold someone who realizes the door was never locked. Every unanswered prayer, every broken promise, every tear that burned your skin was shaping the warrior you now are. And the warrior cannot be silenced anymore. By now, you've begun to see the pattern. Your life has never been random. The storms weren't accidents, the silence wasn't empty, and the resistance wasn't meaningless. Every moment has been pointing toward this awakening. You've walked through seasons that nearly broke you, and yet they shaped you into someone unrecognizable from who you once were. You've carried scars that still ache, but those scars also prove you survived battles meant to destroy you, and in surviving, you've become someone the darkness can no longer ignore. The enemy has tried every tactic: delay, distraction, deception. He's whispered lies through people you trusted, dangled comfort to keep you complacent, and multiplied storms to drain your will. But none of it erased the truth. You're still here, and being here means heaven's plan for your life is still unfolding. Some of you wonder why the opposition never lets up. It's because your life is a threat to everything built on lies. If you awaken fully, you'll not only walk free but carry freedom to others. That ripple effect is what darkness fears most. So now, as the veil thins and the illusion fades, you must decide. Will you step into the identity that's been waiting for you all along? Will you live as though the chains are broken because they are? Will you trust that every delay was positioning, every tear was planting, every silence was preparing you for this very moment? And this is where oversubscription matters. You haven't just been watching videos, you've been part of a movement. Each word spoken here doesn't stop with you, it carries forward, reaching others who feel invisible, silenced, forgotten. Together, you're building something the world can't comprehend. A network of awakenings, a chorus of voices rising out of silence. So hear me clearly. Your suffering was never wasted. Your unanswered prayers weren't ignored. Your story is not ending in defeat. The curtain is lifting, the fog is breaking, and what you see next will change everything. Because the truth has always been this: you are not weak, you are not forgotten, and you are not finished. Your journey isn't proof of abandonment, it's proof of assignment. And now that you see it, nothing in this world or the next can ever take it away.